welcome to episode 19 of The Smallest Thing. I'm Lisa Manterfield. Before I dive in this week, I want to send out a big hello and get well soon to my sister-in-law Tracy. Hope you're up and dancing again soon. This week, I want to talk about evolution. How do we adapt and move forward so we can actually live, but safely, when we look like being in this pandemic life for the long haul? But first, Em goes looking for Deb in Bubble City, and Dad takes matters into his own hands in this week's episode of The Smallest Thing. Welcome to the serialized audiobook, The Smallest Thing, written by Lisa Manterfield, read for you by Charlie Sanderson.
Chapter 19. My breath tears at my chest, scrambling its way to my lungs, but not quick enough. My mask is wet from the exertion of sprinting with all my might to Bubble City. I run to the front entrance, grinding to a halt when I realise I have no idea what I'm hoping to accomplish. To fight my way in to see Deb, to put myself among the sick and the dying. Even I'm not foolish enough to take that risk. But I need to see my friend. I know she's not okay, but I need to see for myself how not okay she is. I peer through the entrance, straining to catch a glimpse of her. I know it's futile, but it doesn't stop me from trying. I move down the line of tents, half desperate to see Deb, half hoping she won't be there. I skirt the perimeter, keeping my distance from the medical personnel scurrying around me. I need to know if she's in there, but I know no one will tell me. I scan the suits looking for Aidan. Just when I really need him, he isn't there. A new tent has been set up just outside the main compound. It's more a canopy than a tent, the kind used to provide shade at a fair. It looks out of place. Underneath, something flaps in the breeze, like a bigger version of Himalayan prayer flags, only made of white paper. Everyone is too busy to notice me, so I hurry over to see what it's all about. Once inside, I can see they aren't flags. They are in fact sheets of paper. The top one reads, Status Update, along with today's date. The top of another sheet reads, Admitted, followed by a list of names. The next few pages look the same, except these are printed with confirmed cases. Below is another list of names. There are 4 pages of people I know. More than 150 people have now been infected. My stomach turns as I move to the last set of pages, labelled Deceased. I scan the list, taking in all the familiar names of people I have known, people who are now gone. The names are grouped by week, each with a date of death. Weeks 1 and 2 show the names of my 2 elderly neighbours, and week 3 contains Dr. Spencer's name. After that, each week has a longer list until this week shows 25 familiar names, almost 50 people in total who have not survived. Unless something changes soon, half the confirmed cases will eventually make that list. I'm struck by the coldness of the lists. All these people I've known reduced to nothing more than a few words. There are no photographs, no celebrations of the lives once lived, no record of accomplishments. We are all reduced now to statistics. I scan the list of dead, knowing Deb won't be there, but needing that crumb of good news. I can barely move the breath in my throat as I check the list once, twice. Deb's name isn't there. I move backward to the confirmed cases list, scanning this week's names. My eyes finding what I'm looking for this time, Elliot. But it's not Deb, it's her stepmum. Mr. Elliot's barricade wasn't enough to halt the protocol. Helena has been found out. I scoot backward to the admitted list, knowing what I'll find. All 3 Elliots are listed, Deb's dad, her brother and Deb. Next to each name is the same location, low prob. They are all in Bubble City. What are you up to? I turn at the sound of the familiar voice behind me. Aidan stands on the threshold of the tent, his friendly eyes smiling back at me. I am transfixed, momentarily unable to reconcile this welcome feeling of comfort with the information newly buzzing around my brain. "I'm sorry about your boyfriend," he says. "It's just precautionary." "He's not my boyfriend." The words shoot from me so fast I don't have time to stop them. "Not anymore," I add, willing myself to stop answering questions I'm not being asked. "You find out who your friends are in times like this," he says. I nod. "Turns out I don't have many." "Are you looking for someone in particular?" He indicates the papers behind me. I manage a small nod. "Family?" I shake my head and his gaze softens. "Are you looking for a friend?" I tell him about Deb. "She's here on this list, but I don't know what that means. I don't know where she is. I don't even know if she's okay." My throat tightens, and I hear my words squeeze into a higher and higher pitch as my eyes fill with tears. "It's all right," Aidan says. "Show me your friend's name." He follows my finger as I point to Elliot, Deborah. Reading her full name like that makes her sound old. I'm struck by what a curious name Deborah is, longer and more exotic written than spoken. It reads like an ancient name, perhaps a goddess or an early African queen. No longer just Deb. My oldest friend is suddenly more complicated, her importance on display for the world to see. "She's low prob, that's good news. It means she's not sick. Let's go and find her." "Where?" I ask. He points me toward Bubble City. "Go around to the visiting area and I'll see if I can find her." "Am I supposed to be there?" He smiles. "For once, yes." He prods me off around the back of the perimeter and heads toward the entrance. At first, I don't move, uncertain of the idea of a visiting area. Everything we know so far has warned us to keep a distance, to avoid getting too close to anyone else in case they're carrying the virus. The thought of venturing into an area where I know people are infectious is alarming, but I need to see Deb. It's the whole reason I'm here. Behind the tents are 2 sets of fencing with a wide gap in between. I move tentatively toward the outermost fence, taking in everything around me, as if waiting for something to happen. The air is heavy with a damp, unidentifiable smell. Even through my mask, the scent of harsh disinfectant burns the back of my throat, triggering memories of the locked room where the school caretaker kept his supply of mops and buckets. I glance up, and my eyes find an opening at the back of the care ward. The inside of the tent looks like frog spawn, a mass of plastic sheeting forming individual bubbles, the dark shapes of yellow suits moving around still, dark figures within. The antiseptic smell suddenly seems to clear, and underneath is a raw human smell, the smell of sickness, of death, and something else, something burning. Beyond the farthest corner of the compound, almost to the woods, an area has been shielded from view by high solid barriers, like a giant white windbreak. From behind the wall, a steady plume of pale grey smoke rises into the clear afternoon sky, and I know immediately what it is. A crematorium to dispose of our dead. I push my mask against my face and hurry toward the visitor area, blinking away the images of the sick and dead now seared on my mind. The thought of what I might find when Deb appears fills me with terror. I know she isn't sick. She isn't like the people in the care ward. But even though I know she's in low prob, probably not infected, merely under observation and awaiting the results of her test, geographically speaking, she's only 2 tents away from the sick. Then my thoughts begin to spiral. What if she's been admitted? Is she showing symptoms? Will she be wheeled out to see me in her own plastic bubble? From this distance, will I even be able to tell if it's her? What if Aidan comes out to tell me Deb isn't even here anymore? What if... But a few minutes later, Aidan pokes his head out of the tent and Deb walks out toward me. At first, she looks exactly the same as she always does, dressed in black, her dark hair flopping over one eye. She grins at me and rolls her eyes as if to say, "Honestly, can you even believe they've dumped me in this place?" But as she reaches her side of the barrier, I can see she is not the same. Something in her face, the way her smile is forced into action, tells me that something profound has changed. "Are you okay?" I gasp. Deb screws up her face as if confronting the biggest idiot ever. No," she says. "I'm camping in a field with a load of other people I don't really want to spend time with, and we don't even get to sing Kumbaya by the fire at night." It's the same Deb humour I've always known, but the edge in her voice tells me it's all a front. My friend is terrified. Through the opening in the tent behind her, I can see the rows of camp beds, each not much more than an arm's length from its neighbour and separated for all intents and purposes by a shower curtain. Considering they've been set up for a group of people at risk of exposure to the virus, they don't look all that safe. "How's Helena?" I ask. Deb twitches one shoulder and looks away. "She's in the care ward. They tell us she's doing well, that she's still strong, but we're not allowed to see her. Dad's about to lose it, I think." "But what about you? Are you okay?" "I'm tired, that's all. But they don't think we have it. They'll probably let us go once the tests come back." "I wish there was something I could do," I say. Deb's face crumples. The stoic lines of my brilliant friend's face fold into one another, hiding the wisdom of her years until she looks no older than Alice. In the centre of my chest a dull ache opens up, reaching tentacles of love toward Deb, but in an instant, her face changes again, and I see her suck in her fear, fighting to regain her composure. "Your friend seems nice," she says with a fake cheery grin. "Aidan?" I blush and look away. "Yeah, he's been really helpful. I don't think much of his sense of style, but my radar's picking up that he might have a thing for our Emmett." I start to object, but Deb holds a hand up to stop me. "Don't be a twit, Em. He's your best ally right now, maybe your only ally. So don't start playing Miss Innocent with me." "Are you suggesting I use him?" "No," says Deb. "I'm suggesting you don't let Roe be the standard by which you measure all men. You have to do everything you can to stay out of this hellhole, and if you've got someone like Aidan on your side, you shouldn't throw that away." I nod to let her know I understand, even though I'm not sure I do. "Use your strength, Salty, that's all I'm saying." Deb wraps her arms around herself, the way we used to as girls, pretending to smooch. "Love you loads." I'd do anything to be able to hug her for real, absolutely anything. All the way home I think about what Deb said about using my strengths, and I worry that her estimations of me are all wrong. I don't even know what my strengths are. I thought I was good at sneaking out at night until I realised Dad knew all along. I have terrible judgment when it comes to trusting people, as evidenced by Roe, and Mrs. Glover's refusal to share valuable knowledge has shown that I have no allies in the village. I used to think of myself as determined and independent, both positive traits, I thought. But they're only a whisker away from stubborn and alone, which is more or less how I feel. I'm still noodling the whole thing as I splash through the disinfectant bath by the back door and let myself into the house. I can hear noises in the kitchen and assume Dad is scrabbling around in there. He's not making cooking noises, though. It sounds like he's mending something or wrapping a present. My birthday. It's less than a week away, and although it's been nowhere near the forefront of my mind lately, I haven't forgotten. You don't forget your 18th birthday, do you? I'm not expecting any kind of celebration, not in the middle of this mess. But is it possible that Dad has found something to stand in for a gift? I push open the door slowly, giving him plenty of warning that I'm coming, but when I look in, he's not wrapping presents. Instead, I'm confronted by the most ridiculous sight I've ever seen, and I can't make head or tail of it. Dad is dressed in an old navy blue boiler suit, fastened up the front with rubber buttons. He has yellow plastic shopping bags over his feet, and his legs are wrapped in bright blue plastic and taped in place with white bands of duct tape. There's more of the blue plastic strewn around the kitchen floor, and once I can make out the words "Grow More" written up Dad's right leg, I realise that they are the empty fertiliser bags that he uses to protect his veggies in the garden. On the table are a pair of plastic goggles, a mask, some washing up gloves, and a lot more plastic. "Dad," I ask, "what are you doing?" Dad's face lights up with what I assume he thinks is joy, but to me, he has the look of a mad scientist. "If you can't beat 'em, join 'em," he says. "Join who?" "The Plastic Bubble Brigade. I've been trying to get them to fork over a hazmat suit so I can get out to check on people. I heard about this thing called a community liaison, someone local assigned to help in a crisis so that people get to see a familiar face. I've tried to convince the authorities, but no luck. Apparently they say it will increase the risk of spread because they can't monitor if people are using correct protocol. Most people won't." "That still doesn't explain why you're standing in the kitchen wrapped in fertiliser bags." "I am not most people. I've been paying attention, and we already have a protocol of our own to follow. I don't know why I didn't think of this before." "Of what, Dad? What are you doing?" He looks up and studies me as if trying to decide if I've really asked such a stupid question. "I'm making a hazmat suit." It takes me a moment to fully grasp this. I hear what he's saying and even understand the implications of what he's telling me, but my mind can't quite grasp the idea that my own father is doing this. "No," I say. "Oh no, you're not." It sounds exactly like something my mother would say to me. "Em, I know I promised you I wouldn't take risks, but I have to be able to get out and see people. This way I can do it safely." I think you've finally lost it. I head for the sink to scrub up, trying to think how I'm going to talk my dad out of this ridiculous idea on which he's so clearly set. I've just been to see Deb, Dad. She's in Bubble City. Helena's in the care ward. Nobody's really sure exactly how this thing gets passed around, but given that the workers are still wearing fully sealed suits, I'd say this thing is fairly aggressive. We have to do whatever we can to protect ourselves, and I'm really sorry, but this is not it. Dad seems to deflate and plunks himself down on one of the kitchen chairs. "There," I say, pointing to the seat with my elbow. "Right there is why this is a bad idea. What if you go into someone's house, being all neighbourly, and you sit down to offer your words of comfort, but they have the virus in their house? So what happens? You take your infected posterior to the next neighbour and leave the virus on their kitchen chair, or you bring it home to us. See? This is a very, very bad idea, Dad." "I've thought of that already. I hose myself off after I leave. We'll create a new protocol." I shake my head in disbelief. "A new protocol? Great idea, because you are so qualified to do that." He doesn't say anything. I just think this is one of those things that seems like a good idea all the way until it suddenly becomes a bad idea. And I know you don't want to be the person responsible when it does. He sighs. I hate that he looks defeated, but I can't let him win this one. "I have to do something," he says. "No, you don't. Not anymore. You've done as much as you can, and now it's time to stop." Dad narrows his eyes at me. "It's not like you to give up so easily. You're usually so much more determined." It's the closest thing to a compliment I can expect from my dad, and it pings around inside me like a moth around a light. I'm not ready to give up either. But when it comes to other options, I'm flat out of ideas. "I know, Dad," I say, "but for once, it's all we can do." All evening I think about Deb, wondering what she's doing, if she's sleeping or if she's lying awake, waiting to find out her fate. I wish I could be there with her. I imagine myself strolling into the tent in Dad's homemade suit. It would be a death sentence. I can't believe Dad would think for 1 minute it could be a good idea. And yet, would I take that chance to be with Deb? Does my dad really care so much about our neighbours that he'd risk his own health for them? Dad's idea isn't completely idiotic. In a way, it's sort of noble, and suddenly I realise that it's brilliant. Just not in the way Dad had planned it. If we are to survive this, what better way than to isolate ourselves fully from risk? I pull out my phone and scroll to Aidan's name. Deb's right about him being an ally. But where is the line between asking a friend for a favour and asking too much? I suppose there's only one way to find out. I tap a brief, "How are you?" and then I wait to see if I really do have an ally, to find out where that tricky line is drawn. It feels like a lifetime later that his response comes back. "Better now," it says, and I am filled with hope.
Welcome back. This morning, I was looking back at photos from the first couple of months of 2020. I went to the movies and a sold-out concert in a small venue. I had family come to stay at my house, went ice skating, became a citizen in a packed auditorium with several thousand people. I hugged my friend, had afternoon tea with a colleague, went to a standing room only book signing, and I voted in person. My last pre-pandemic pictures were taken at Home Depot, as I looked for doors for the writing shed I planned to have built. The next photo on my roll is of the empty paper products shelf at my local Target. 5 months later, here we are, still figuring out the pandemic life. It would be easy to sink into despair about all the things we can no longer do, and believe me, there are days when I've been there. Up until now, we've been waiting it out, putting our lives on hold until it's all over. But as we settle into this pandemic life for the long haul, I've been thinking about how we can evolve and adapt to this new way of living. Our local Performing Arts Centre has created a pop-up drive-in movie theatre. Our city has closed off the downtown area to traffic and built outdoor dining spaces. They've set up a mini gallery for local artists and arranged live music on the weekends. Our county fair should have opened last weekend. Instead, though, the fairgrounds organised drive-through fair food so we don't have to miss out on our corn dogs and funnel cakes. On a personal level, we're trying to evolve too. We're making a little patio area in the garden so we can sit outside, and we've moved our weekends to Wednesdays so we can visit parks and coastal beaches when they're less crowded. We're making a habit of getting out of the house as much as possible, and also enjoying the birds and creatures that visit our backyard. We're both signed up for online classes, and we're trying hard to maintain regular contact with family and friends through calls and video. We're also looking long-term and trying to figure out how to build a big life on a small footprint, so we can stay mentally healthy while still keeping ourselves and others safe. I'll keep you posted on how it all goes. If you're enjoying Em's story and you want to find out how it ends, but you don't want to wait, you can get a copy of the book in print, ebook, or audiobook from online retailers or your local bookstore. Details and links are on my website. Go to lisamanterfield.com and click on the Books tab. If you're enjoying the show, please consider leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Next week, I look backwards at history, and Em and her neighbours finally get some good news. For now, stay well. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Smallest Thing. To make sure you don't miss next week's episode, you can subscribe now on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and more. If you'd like to support the show, please leave a review and share this series with others you think might enjoy it. If you're on Instagram, tag me there at lisamanterfield_. Or follow me on Facebook at author Lisa Manterfield and Twitter at Lisa Manterfield. My newsletter subscribers are always the first to know about my news, events, upcoming releases, giveaways and more. Sign up for monthly delivery at lisamanterfield.com/subscribe and get your complimentary copy of Love, Loss and Letting Go, 3 of my short stories. Thanks to Justin Joseph for producing and editing this show, and to Ketsa.uk for the music. That's all for this episode. Thanks for listening.